Hey guys, one year I bought my wife a tent trailer as a Valentine's Day gift. It scared her so bad, we almost separated. You've got to hear the rest of that story. Stick with me. In this video, we're talking about risk. I'll finish that story, and I promise, after this video, you will understand your spouse's financial decision making better, you're gonna fight less, and hopefully you won't buy any gifts that bite you in the ass. Risk is super complicated because risk is very individual, and risk is the foundation of all financial decision making. Some people have a really high tolerance for risk, and some people have a super low tolerance for risk. Let me give you an example. What would you pay to be 100% certain that for the rest of your life you would never get a flat tire? How much would you be willing to pay? I probably wouldn't pay much, not much more than a couple $100s. I actually enjoy working on vehicles. I may pay a little more in wintertime than I would in summertime, but the fact of the matter is, I'm not gonna pay a lot of money just to guarantee I don't have to change a tire. My wife, on the other hand, would probably pay thousands of dollars to ensure that she would never have to change a tire, because chances are she wouldn't. She'd probably just call the tow truck. It would be a horrible experience for her, and honestly, she'd be scared standing on the side of the road, especially at night, trapped in this vehicle that can't move. I would be willing to bet she would be willing to pay thousands and thousands of dollars to guarantee with 100% certainty she would never blow a tire. See, that's the risk tolerance difference between us. I have some experience and resources on my side that make me accept higher risk when it comes to blowing a tire versus my wife, who doesn't have the resources, and so her risk tolerance is very low. Now, when it comes to making a decision in your finances, like let's say buying a new car, you and your spouse will have very different risk tolerances, just as me and Nikki do. So if you have a past, let's say, where you come from a low-income family and you're afraid of not having enough money in the bank to cover bills or to cover food or something like that, your risk tolerance for purchasing a new vehicle might be really low. Whereas your spouse, on the other hand, maybe they come from a more wealthy background. Maybe they haven't even really been involved in the finances with you, and they don't totally understand where you're at with finances. And in that case, their risk tolerance might be really high, or they're just naive to risk. So because the two of you are on two different playing fields when it comes to risk, there's going to be a disagreement. One has low risk tolerance and the other has high risk tolerance. And that kind of a disagreement just has to be approached with a lot of understanding and compassion. And usually there's a middle ground that can be found, such as when Nikki and I went to buy our vehicle, we were paying $16,000 cash for it. And so the agreement was we had to have a large emergency fund set aside before she felt safe enough to go out and purchase this vehicle using $16,000, which was pretty much all of our cash at that time. The point is, in order for me to mitigate risk in buying a newer vehicle, what I had to do was work harder, sell some stuff, do whatever I needed to do to make some extra money to build Nikki that little insurance, that little emergency fund, so that she saw less risk in purchasing the car. And for me to do that is actually a way to show love and respect to her. And it's also a way for her to come to a middle ground with me. Buying a vehicle is a pretty big expense, so that's a pretty extreme example of risk. But even when you're doing your budget, and if you haven't checked out my video on making a budget, go check that out now. But even when you're making your budget, if you are deciding where to put money into the different categories, even that decision is going to be driven in a large part by risk. So when you're negotiating how much money each of you should have just for regular spending money, for some people who've never really been through significant financial hardships, they're going to want to put a lot of money into that envelope or that category so that they have freedom and they have money to spend. Other people who are really stressed out about money, probably bringing in some of their past where they've had some really stressful times with money, like we've had. I remember literally digging through not only couch cushions but car cushions looking for change so that we could go and buy this specialized formula that my one daughter needed because she was allergic to lactate or something like that. So we had to get this really expensive formula, and you could get 2 cans, the big large can or the really small can, and we were just trying to scratch together enough coinage to get the small can. Anyway, every decision that you make about how much money to put into each category is somewhat going to be made based off of risk. So anyway, I'll finish my story. Why did we nearly separate after I bought a tent trailer for my wife for a Valentine's Day gift? Well, it's because I financed it. And the payments were only like $230 a month. But you know what? We didn't have $230 a month. At that point, I had completely abdicated my responsibility for tuning into our finances and sharing the burden of making responsible decisions when it came to the finances in our marriage. And so when I went and financed a trailer, I was like, $250, that's nothing. Hook it up, let's go, my wife's gonna love it. And the truth is, all I did was took what was probably our $250 that we had left at the end of the month and blew it on some trailer that she could really give 2 craps about. She would have been happier with a hand-me-down tent from someone, and we would still have the quality time camping and getting that value without stressing out about the finances. And the truth is, I mean, it just covered up a bigger problem, and that problem was we weren't united on our finances. And hey, financial stress is the #1 cause of divorce in all of North America. I know you've heard me say it before. I sound like I'm harping on it, but it's what I'm passionate about. And I want you guys to get along in your relationship. I want you to have a happy and healthy marriage. I don't want you to go through a lot of the crap that we've had to go through. So don't go financing a trailer. So my challenge for you guys today is to sit down with your spouse and talk about risk. It doesn't have to be a big, heavy conversation. Just have a chat about it. Start with that question that I posed. How much would you pay to guarantee that you would never have a flat tire ever again in your entire life? Try and expand the conversation into understanding why they think about risk the way that they do. It's going to help you guys out so much when you're decision making and understanding why the other person isn't agreeing with something that seems so obvious to you. Talk about when your spouse grew up. How was money handled in their house? Was there ever a time where they felt like there was no money available? Have they ever gone hungry before? Have they ever missed a bill before? Or have they always been kind of prosperous and wealthy? These are important things to know, because when it comes to making financial decisions, as I said, risk is one of the major decision makers. It's one of the major foundations. And when you get somebody who is scared to make that purchase or make that investment or whatever you may be doing, that fear will drive them into a place that you can't leverage them out of. And then it comes time to just understanding from a compassionate standpoint of, look, I understand why you're saying a hard no to this, and let's see if we can put some stuff in place so that you can come to a place of yes, or maybe I need to move to a no. Someone who has a very low tolerance for risk actually balances out someone who has a very high tolerance for risk. Either one of those things in an extreme is bad, but if you can meet in the middle using respectful conversation and conflict, it can really make for a powerful financial relationship between the two of you. So there's my challenge. Have the conversation, see if you can understand where their risk tolerance is at, see if you can understand where your own risk tolerance is at. If you haven't checked out my video on fighting in marriage, definitely go and watch that. I think you'll really like it. And hey, like, subscribe, comment. Have you guys ever made any really bonehead moves when it comes to spending money in your marriage? Please tell me about it in the comments. I promise I will get around to responding from you. Please tell me I'm not the only one.